Good morning, my friends. I hope you're doing well. We're going to be learning today chapter 7 in the Laws of Studying Torah. It's a very interesting chapter, and the Rambam goes a little bit off topic of the idea of actual study, and he continues on from where we left off yesterday in regards to the idea of ostracizing or a ban or excommunication with a certain individual who has been acting in an improper way. And he continues discussing these laws and the various details of what are included over here. So it's an interesting set of laws. And let's see what the Rambam has to tell us today. So the Rambam begins by telling us today in chapter 7 of the Laws of Studying Torah. And he begins off by saying that when we're talking about the idea of ostracizing or a ban placed on a person, so if we're talking about a very wise sage, someone who is very known for his scholarly his study and wisdom, or if we're talking about one of the leaders of the Jewish people, for instance, the chief of the high court, or for instance, the Nasi, the leader of the Jewish people, so someone which is in such a stature, so then we should really, because we need to have a very high level of respect for these people, so we do not put them into a ban, we don't ostracize them. But on the other hand, we take them into privately to tell them off, to make sure that they go back into their proper way, as it says in the verse that you shall stumble during the day, and the prophet will stumble with you at night. In other words, that it should be in a style of night, in darkness, where the general congregation and people are not aware and are not witnessing this what's going on, because it should be in a way of respect and of honor because of this person's stature. So, how in general is the idea of a ban issued? In other words, for a regular person who, a person who is has not been acting properly, and now, according to Jewish law, and the Beth Din sees that the only last resort in order to get them back onto the right track would be by giving them such a wake-up call and telling them, all right, you're not allowed to be part of the community. And that's going to shake them up, hopefully, and essentially bring them back onto the right path. So they say that you shall be ostracized, and if the person is there in front of them, so then they say, this person, so-and-so, shall be ostracized. Or if it's a higher level, it's not just ostracization, but rather if he's excommunicated, which is even a higher level, as we're going to see the differences soon, so then they say so-and-so is excommunicated. And this is, it's almost like a curse and like an oath, which they say, and it's very intense, and it's actually a very sad thing that when the high court has to come to such a situation to ban someone from being part of the community, they must have done something pretty bad. So they place a ban on this person, and now how do they lift it? If they see that now he's come back to a good way, and now he's acting properly, and now they're like, okay, let's get rid of this excommunication. So they say, you are released, you are forgiven, and the high court can then take it away. And how should a person act in this time? Suddenly he's excommunicated. So what's he supposed to do? What does that practically mean? So first of all, this person, he has to live in a way of mourning. It's such a terrible thing to be excommunicated. It's to be banned from the rest of the Jewish people. So he has to mourn over it. So first of all, he doesn't take a haircut, he doesn't do laundry, just like someone who is a mourner all these days when he is in this ban. And we don't include him in a minyan, for instance, or anything else. We don't sit close to them. We social distance ourselves from them. But he's still allowed to study Torah, to listen to classes of Torah. He's allowed to teach Torah if he was a teacher. And people are allowed to hire him. He's allowed to hire people. In other words, he still has some sort of connection with society. And if this person has died in the middle of this state while he's banned, so then it says that the Beth Din should send to his funeral, a stone should be placed on his casket while he's buried to show that this person has been ostracized. That's a long word. And similarly, we don't eulogize them and so on because of the situation, it's going to be slightly different than a regular person's funeral. Now, what about that? That's just in a case of someone who is banned or ostracized. In a case where someone is excommunicated, so that's a higher level of disconnecting someone from the Jewish community. So in such a case, he's not allowed to go to the study hall to study, even if you're going to be sitting separately, and neither can he teach if he's someone who teaches Torah, but on his own, at home, wherever he is. So then he's obviously still allowed to study on his own, and he cannot hire people. He cannot be hired by others. We don't deal with him only just a little bit so that he should be able to survive financially. So even a person who's excommunicated, we're still allowed to do a little bit of business with them in order that they should be able to live. So what happens? So this guy is being put into a ban. It's being excommunicated. Goes by a certain amount of time, a couple days. So after 30 days, if he hasn't requested, if this person hasn't come and said, I want to go back to a proper way, I want to do good, and I want you guys to take off this ban. So if after 30 days he hasn't come to ask for his ban to be taken away, so then we ban him again for the mere fact that he doesn't care to be in a ban. And if after the second set of 30 days he doesn't come again to ask that they should nullify this, so then they excommunicate him. He goes into the next level, into a worse level of excommunication. Now, when they are going to be releasing him from this ostracism or excommunication, it's done in front of 3 people. And it can even be regular people. It doesn't have to be a sage or a Beth Din or anything. These 3 people can sit and they can nullify this and take it away. If they saw that he's doing well and now it's applicable and they're able to take it away, so then they do that. And even if they go to another city, they're allowed to go to 3 people over there, and the circumstances will be looked into, and if they see that he actually is doing well, so then they're allowed to do it. Now the only thing is that the person has to know who ostracized him. So, in other words, he has to know which Beth Din or which people it was, who it was, and ultimately he has to be able to tell the person who is nullifying it that this is who did it in the first place, and now this and this was the issue. Now I have repented, and they'll look into it to see that it's true, and then they'll be able to nullify it. The problem is, what about someone who doesn't know? He doesn't actually know who was the one who made the ban. So then he has to go to the Nasi, to the leader of the Jewish people, and he will nullify it for him. What about someone who was put in a ban, but it was with a condition? It was a conditional ban, that if you do this and this, so then you will be put into a ban. Or if you do this and this, then this will be nullified. So if it was on a ban, he still needs to have a nullification done, even though now the reason for the ban might not be applicable anymore because he's doing better. He still needs to have an actual nullification of the ban. But if it's a Torah scholar, a sage, who issued something on himself, he banned himself because of something which he did, and he feels that he's not deserving to be part of the community right now. So even if he did it on, even whether he did it with a condition or without a condition, he's now able to nullify the ban himself, because he put himself into prison. He's allowed to take himself out of prison. Someone who puts you into prison, you can't take yourself out. If someone has a dream, and this is a very interesting law, if someone has a dream at night, he's sleeping, and he suddenly sees in his dream that you have whoever that is placing a ban upon you in your dream. That's a pretty freaky nightmare. And they tell you you're not part of the community, you're excommunicated. And the guy wakes up, he's in shivers. Oh my God, what's going on? But it's only a dream. So the Rambam says, it's only a dream. But you still have to nullify that ban. And it's not like a regular ban. It's not like a regular ban, which is by 3 people, you just take 3 people. Rather, you need to have 10 people, and they should be sages if possible. If not, then it's okay. And if you can't find 10, it's also fine 3. But in the best way to do this is to take 10 people and to tell them what happened, and they should nullify for you this ban. So it's quite an interesting law, and hope it doesn't happen to anyone. Continuing on in Rambam, if a person was placed into a ban and he was there at the time, he was there in front of the court who did it, so then he has to be there in the time when they nullify it. In other words, if he wasn't there, then they're allowed to nullify it without him being there. But if he was there, so then he has to be there in order for the nullification to take place and work. And there is no specific amount of time that a person has to be ostracized. But rather, even if it's just for a moment, and he's like, oh my God, I went off the deep end. And he's like, I want to go back to a proper way. I want to repent. So then they're like, absolutely. And they nullify it straight away. In other words, there's no minimum amount of time that this ban is placed upon the person. And it really depends on the situation. And if the high court sees that it's improper for anyone to be eating and drinking with them, and if someone does, then they will be banned as well. So then if they feel that this is important for the situation, because you have people who, according to the person's wickedness and according to his actions, whatever they see fit should be done for that situation, so then they may do this. Now, the truth is, and this is how the Rambam finishes off the Rambam for today, and he says that in general, although there is a power granted to be able to put a person into a ban or excommunicated, it's obviously a very negative thing, and we shouldn't ever have to come to that situation. And we find that the early pious men, early sages, they would say that, although someone might have done something wrong, whether it was against themselves, in other words, they mocked a Torah scholar, that person himself, or they did something else which was improper, as we mentioned yesterday, the 24 things which a person might be banned for, they would always, these sages would say how they would take pride, so to speak, in the fact that they never ever had to do this and never had to go down that path, but rather they want to live with pleasant deeds, and they would never do anything like that. Even if they were humiliated in public by a person, they would still not do this. But the truth, I'm sorry, my mistake. If it was in private, if a Torah sage was humiliated by someone in private, so then he should just let it go, and he should be kind and forgive. But if it was in public, in other words, that the honor of the Torah was touched upon in public, and now everyone sees this, so then he has to do this. He has to do this ostracization in order to set things straight, and that we should not have the Torah being mocked or dishonored all the way till the person will ask forgiveness, and then he will take away the ban. But in general, it's obviously not a very positive thing to go around and ban people, so it's definitely not something which is done, and it's really a last resort for very specific situations where they feel that there is no other way to end this situation properly except for literally taking the person away, from excommunicating them from the community, because they are doing such a havoc, or they're doing such negativity on a communal level, as we see that most of these things that a person, yesterday we learned, these 24 things that a person might be banned for, most of them are things that will affect others and the community. So then that's something which might be done in a case of dire necessity. But obviously, as the Rambam finishes off over here, we all have to be as kind and pleasant and loving, kindness and forgiving, really. Even in a case where someone is going in a bad way, we should try through love to bring them back. But if it doesn't work, so then we have measures, as the Rambam told us today, to take care of it. So with that, we will complete the Rambam for today. God willing, I hope that later today I should be able to do the Rambam for Shabbat, and we will continue on with our daily Rambam. Have a very good day. All the best.